A tenant gave a small landlord a fake background check to hide the fact that they were a sex offender. Now that landlord is forced to go through the eviction process. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have some interesting stories for you today. And once again, they are coming from the comment section from my videos, okay? So I decided that I was going to start doing more regular, just dives into the comments to bring you some of the stories that the other landlords are sharing with me. They are very good stories. They're examples of some of the bad things that we have to go through at times, okay? And some of them are good examples, and some of them are nightmare situations. And I like to bring you the nightmare situations because, some of them are, learning opportunities for people who think, they know everything. I don't know everything. I know that, okay? And I like to hear about the experiences that other landlords are having. But it could also be a warning to those out there who are, looking at becoming landlords, especially in places where there's strict rent control policies and tenant protections that make it very difficult to operate, okay? So, I've got a few different comments I'm going to be going over in this video, and these stories are pretty good. I like it, and I want to thank all the people who took the time to actually leave comments on my videos. So before I get into the comments, go ahead and hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know your story, okay? I want to know more stories, and that's the reason I keep bringing this up, is because I like to see activity in my comment section. I like to bring videos like this to you whenever possible, and I know that there's a lot of dedicated landlords out there who are doing their very best, okay? And it's good to bring the stories of people out there, and most of the time, even in the worst case scenario, it didn't break the spirit of the people who they had to go through these nightmares, okay? They didn't go out of business. They suffered, financially, mentally, etc., but that didn't push them out of the business, okay? But anyway, let's get into these comments, all right? So the first comment that I have today, and it's coming from my video, Tenant extorts landlord and realtor out of $15,000 by refusing to leave to sell the property, okay? And that came out on January 16th, so just a short, few days back. And the first comment I want to read for you is from a person named Jack Dawson 3276, and Jack says, "Great commentary. I have a tenant that acts like they own the property and cry if you adjust the rent to keep up with inflation. The apartment was given to them in pristine condition. It's a dump now. The saving grace is that they do pay every month and have been there for over 20 years. They even paid during COVID. Also, the apartment is all original from 1968, so I would have had to renovate anyway. The ironic thing is that they are Republican and say they can't stand the left's victimhood agenda. I guess I'll keep them so long as they pay, and I can adjust the rent to at least 15% below market. They've been paying 25% below market. Shame on us for not raising their rent incrementally from the beginning. You are better off raising it $50 here and there. If you go 4 to 5 years with no increase, they get used to that. They definitely don't appreciate that." And Jack has some very good points there. That's part of the reason why a lot of us suggest, just to be consistent with your rent increases, because they will be very, very unhappy if you didn't increase their rent for a long time and then suddenly you're trying to bring it much closer to market rate. Okay, that's not to say that we can't do that in a lot of places, right? But I'd prefer them to get used to it so that there are less complaints, less problems going into the future. Now, these people, in terms of Jack's story, they've been in the place for 20 years. They pay their rent consistently on time, and I'm with them. Just don't bother doing any of the renovations if the place hasn't been updated in a very long time. If they want to stay there and they are paying below market rent, well, these people have already done more than most tenants are willing to do. Okay, they pay their rent on time, they stay in there, there isn't a lot of turnover. So yeah, to me, them paying less than market rate isn't a bad thing. Okay, it seems like that's a good deal, even if they aren't the best tenants. Okay, but anyway, yeah, hang in there, Jack. Sounds like you've got actually a decent tenant in your property. So the next comment I'm reading, it's coming from the same video, and it says it's from Special Education Innovation 2687. And it says, I had a tenant give me a fake background check. The tenant was an unregistered Tier 2 sex offender with 7 felonies. The occupant has 7 prostitution charges. A pimp and hoe caused $7,500 in damages and didn't pay rent for 2 months. I am pursuing small claims court. I even found his fake ID and social security card as he is committing identity theft. Yeah, and that's a nightmare scenario right there. We're talking about a person who, basically used a fake name, fake, social security number so that they can move up into your place. And it turns out, guess what? They are a sex offender. Okay, this is the kind of nightmare I don't want. I don't want any sex offenders in any of my properties at any point in time. These are the people who immediately are blacklisted from renting, on top of people with evictions, on top of people with felony convictions. Okay, and I can do that here in the places where I'm investing. I invest in the Kansas City area and in Omaha, right? So it's legal for me to say, hey, I don't want people up in my property who have, who are on the sex offender registration, who have serious criminal histories, who have eviction histories, okay? But you can't do that in every place. So you should look at your local laws, be sure that you're following the law. But my suggestion, right, and whether it is legal or not, right, do what is best for your business. And that might mean that you might have to find some other way to disqualify a person with these kind of problems, okay? So if you have a person who is renting from you and they turn up to be on the sex offender registry, then to me, find a reason to get rid of that person because they are a threat to your business. Basically, other people won't want to rent from you in your building if you have a sex offender living right there next to them. I certainly wouldn't want to live there. I don't want to live next to a sex offender, and I'm sure none of my tenants do either. So I don't want to rent to a sex offender because then that puts my other units at risk. And I think that most landlords could say that. Now, if you own a single family house and you are made aware of this and then you choose to say, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to give this person a chance. That is you. That is up to your personal decision-making skills, right? But I'm just saying, I wouldn't personally do that. I wouldn't, okay? Now, as for this special education innovation specific story, right now that the person is up in there, and you're pursuing, the damages in small claims court, just be aware that the majority of the time you're not going to get anything out of these tenants. There's just no, you can't, what do they say? What's the saying? You can't squeeze blood from a turnip. It's basically, these people are broke. They've got no money, which is part of the reason why they didn't pay you. Now, you might be able to get some sort of wage garnishment on them. Maybe they've got a job, or maybe they have some sort of taxable income that could be funneled to you, but in a lot of cases, that's just not going to happen. So that's why many landlords, they don't pursue it. They just want the people up out of there. And, like I actually did pursue one of my tenants who I had to go through the eviction process. I actually pursued, the money, and we won the case, and I actually got paid by that tenant. But it was, it's hard to believe this, but imagine you evict somebody in, I believe I evicted them in 2017, and I didn't get a dime from them until 2020, okay? It was 3 years later, and then they were like, hey, this person who you won this judgment against, well, guess what? They finally got some sort of income 3 years later. That's how ridiculous it is, right? And so, there is a cost in a lot of cases to you and a lot of that cost is just stress. Okay, if you don't want to deal with that stress, then don't bother. But yeah, just if you're going after it, I mean, I have no problem if you are going after it. Just know that you might not ever get a dime out of these people. So let's see here. This comment is coming from Foodog Whisperer 3590, and it says, I had a tenant do this same thing. He said he was going to hold up the sale unless I paid him to leave or evicted him. He said he knew his way around eviction law and would drag it out. I ended up talking him down to a reasonable amount and just paid him. Karma's a B. People just don't understand this and blame everybody but their own greed and dishonesty. And absolutely correct, right? And you know, karma is a B. You know, like I personally believe that, you know, while karma itself might not be real, right? These negative actions will catch up to people, okay? And that is what we see happen so many times. Basically, you can only do this kind of garbage so many times before something negative will happen to you. And it will be a direct result of the fact that you were just operating in such a wicked manner, okay? And, you know, it sucks that tenants do this kind of stuff, okay? They think that, hey, this is free money, or this is, you know, some greedy landlord and we're just getting even, and they have the inability to look at the situation from another person's perspective. So, you know, it's kind of like when you have a person, they go out and they have a credit card, right? And they go out and they spend, you know, a whole bunch of money on this credit card, and then they don't want to pay back the debt that they, you know, for the money that they owe. So you got a whole bunch of stuff, you know, whatever you spent your money on, and you want someone else to pay for it. Well, that's a similar thing to what happens to landlords. And that's why, you know, like, my personal belief is that it is merely theft in a lot of cases. It is merely theft when you are taking rent from a landlord, or you're taking their housing and then you're not paying them rent, okay? So, you know, it sucks that they double screw you over and you have to pay them to go, but with the way the system works, you know, it just ends up being cheaper, it ends up just being faster, and that's why a lot of landlords end up doing it. So I'm going to continue and go to another one of my videos, comments from another one of my videos, and this is comment is coming from my video, Landlord pays tenant $2,500 to leave, but she refuses to go and has to be evicted anyway, okay? And, you know, this is on a more optimistic note, coming from a landlord in a more tenant-friendly area. And it's coming from Sue's A phone, and Sue says, it's still worth being a housing provider in a heavily tenant-protected area, though it's not for everyone. As you said, there's a risk of losing thousands to ungrateful people. It's imperative to have high standards on who qualifies as a tenant. I've gotten more strict over the years. The last vacancy ad had 1,500 clicks, 350 requests to view, 33 viewings, 9 applications, and only 3 qualified to live there. From there, I picked the people that seemed the most enthusiastic about the space, the location, and the opportunity to live there. If that makes me greedy or whatever, I'm okay with that. And this is great advice for those people who, you know, maybe you already own a property in a place that is much more tenant friendly, or, you know, you just have a strong desire to live there and invest there. Then, you know, take this advice here. Tenant screening is the 100% most important thing, regardless of where you're investing. Tenant screening is the most important thing to make sure that you don't get taken advantage of. Now, you know, if you are a landlord, you know, like Sue's A phone says, right? It still is worth it. It's just harder. It's a lot harder. It can be a lot more costly, and it could be, big issues that come up. And so, like I tell people, I believe strongly in being a landlord. I believe that it's a good thing. I believe it's a great way to build wealth over time, right? And it's very easily accessible to almost anyone. So I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying you have to be careful. You have to be more careful than people who are in places like where I live and where I invest. Okay? Now, places with rent control, places with, tenant protections that don't allow you to evict, I'm still very, very, very pessimistic about it. And I would still suggest, especially small landlords, just don't waste your time. Don't waste your time.